This is the VIP Podcast, Virginia in Politics. Let's listen to host Chris Saxman explore the personalities and policies that connect the Commonwealth. The VIP Podcast is brought to you by the VCTA, Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free. The views and opinions expressed here do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the VCTA and Virginia Free or our sponsors.
This is Chris Saxman back on the VIP Podcast brought to you by VCTA, the Broadband Association of Virginia and Virginia Free, with our brand new spectacular VIP, Delegate Don Scott. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
Tell me about your session so far. How's it going?
It's been fun. It's been different. I came in January 2020 when I was sworn in, and we were in the majority for the first time in 20 years or so. Yep. And so now I'm learning to get a taste of the minority. We were talking about baseball earlier and how you have to be humble. You learn real quick that your opinion doesn't have the same sway it once had when you're in the minority.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the video, how a bill becomes a law.
Yeah, right.
How they never say, and be in the majority.
Yeah, and be in the majority if you even want the thing to be heard.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. You've made a little bit of news this session.
A little bit.
More than most, more than almost all of the legislators here. You took straight aim at the governor. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, it really was out of some frustration with the conversations around race, critical race theory, and some other issues. And so I was like, this is too divisive.
Okay.
And this is not why we're here now. We're here now to do the people's business, to listen to bills, to listen to ideas, debate those ideas, give them vigorous, healthy, sometimes rough debate, which is fair. But hopefully we won't continue to use race and race alone as a wedge issue. And that was my issue with the governor. And we had a very respectful, longer than I thought at the time, conversation.
If I could bring it to a baseball metaphor, it's one of those unwritten rules, right? If the guy's crowding the plate, you brush him back.
Brush him back.
Do you think you threw a brush back pitch?
I think I threw a brush. I think I threw a brush back pitch, not only at his attention, but since that time. Hopefully it won't happen. Hopefully they won't publish this podcast before. But since that conversation that we had, no one's brought that up on the floor.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was coming up every day, and it just got to the point. That same day was when I said, "Hold on."
So
request to speak.
So that broke.
Yeah.
The tension.
Yeah, I think that broke the tension.
And that's what happens. And that's what happens in baseball. And the Delegate Cliff Hayes was just in here. We talked about the metaphors of baseball and politics, and I think they're all over the place, right? Because it's a grind, and it's every day, and it's you versus the other team, but you're still an individual.
That's right.
You have to perform as an individual, part of a team.
Right, and then you have to have some sportsmanship.
Yeah,
that's some unwritten rules.
That's very important. But in those moments, after you have that event in a game where you throw a brush back pitch, and as a catcher, I've only called for a couple shots.
Time.
I mean, I've gone out there and said, "You're hitting this guy.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. He's going down. You're not going to pitch ever again for me."
That's right. That's right.
Sometimes some things just have to be done. Is that what drove you to say this? I have to say something.
Right. It was totally spontaneous.
Was it?
Totally spontaneous, right off the riff.
And
I think one of the other members on the other side of the aisle had just given don't make our children feel bad by teaching this stuff and the divisive stuff. And I was like, hold on, time out.
Right.
And that was it. And I think since that time, that conversation has moved on. And we have had that conversation where it should be in some places where policy is discussed. And that's okay. We have a different view on it.
But not in the open air of the House floor.
But not on the floor where people are using it just for political points, to score political points and to attack people's personal views.
Okay.
And I think that's where we are now. And I think we're in a good
and
space.
you broke the ice with the governor. Did you break bread afterwards?
We have not had the opportunity to break bread. I'm looking for.
He came to your office.
He came to my office. He came in my office.
And how did that conversation go?
It was a great conversation. We both have agreed that we would keep that conversation confidential, but we spoke 45 minutes, very candid conversation.
Productive, do you think?
Very productive. I think very productive. If nothing else, you get to hear other people's views. And if you're a person who has some empathy, you will listen to the other person's views and walk away, maybe with a different perspective, maybe not agreeing, maybe agreeing to disagree on the intent of certain policies and ideas, but you listen. And I think that's what was positive from it. I'm hopeful that we have a long way to go with the governor. I think, as any new person, I'm new. I still think I'm new, and I've been here, this is my third session. Well, heck, fourth or fifth if you count all these special sessions we've had with COVID and stuff. But it's my fourth session here.
But really, one of your first ones on the floor with your colleagues.
We had
so many of the specials in last year were remote.
We had in 2020 we had our first, and then the next two were all remote.
Right.
So I had one real session where we went through the whole 2020 session. Then 2021. It was remote. And so, this is my third session, and now we're, every other one, I guess. Hopefully COVID won't come back and I won't miss the next one, but not to that extent.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. But we have so much going on that is bigger than some of those, I think, wedge issues. I mean, if you look at what we do on the floor every day, you know this. I go in the room and 90% of the stuff that we vote on is uncontested.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the 10% where we have some differences and then we have to work out, and that's okay. But I think that's how, we overblow some of our differences in this country and in the Commonwealth when we literally have 90% of the things we agree on.
Absolutely, but that doesn't make the headlines. It doesn't make the Twitter.
Nope.
And every time I try to bring people up to that reality, they're kind of like, what are you talking about?
That's not
I would
fun.
go home to my district and people are like, why do you guys always talk about guns and abortion? I'm like, we never talk about guns and abortion. It's like, to your point, 90% of the time we talk about everything but
how do we fix small stuff? How do we make sure that families can deal with inflation? How can we make sure that,
especially if you're not on those committees.
Exactly.
What committees are you on, Don?
I'm blessed. I'm on Commerce and Energy.
Okay.
I'm on Courts of Justice. I'm on Finance.
Wow.
I got I got a pretty good lineup. That's a pretty good plate. I enjoy it. Learn a lot every day. I'm humbled by the things that you get to learn here and get to meet folks whose lives are affected by the decisions that we make.
Speaking of misconceptions about the session and what you don't talk about, what's another misconception you'd like to tell the audience? Like, look, it really doesn't happen down here, or it does happen here. But what's a reality moment for you to kind of go, that's what everyone should know about this place?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that people think is like, the lobbyists have this undue influence on people and they do with a lot. Not true. I mean, most of the time, your constituents, my constituents, have way more. The people that vote for me, those are the people I listen to first and foremost. If they have a position and they have a strong position, I will vote against any other interest because for the people that sent me here.
Right.
So the people that I represent, I think people think some people have an outside undue influence, lobbyists and folks who give money. I think I can say this about almost all 100 members. They're more influenced by their constituents. They're more influenced by the community that they go back to, that they have to serve. Those folks they have to look in the eye every day. So a lot of times they may not even agree with the position, but they know that their constituents, that's their position. So they're gonna stick with their constituents' position. Now, if it's a matter of honor for them, they'll go back and explain it to their constituents why they voted against it. But for the most part, people do what their communities want them to do for the most part.
Yeah, I'll never forget Delegate then Senator Bill Carrico, who was a former state trooper.
I know exactly who it was. I introduced the old bill of his this session.
Okay.
And I said, this is a Republican idea, y'all, and they still killed it. But anyway,
doesn't mean it's a good one. Trust me.
It was an exact.
Well, they killed a lot of my own bills.
Yeah, it was an exact bill, and it was a great bill. It was a magistrate bill, but
he was voted on the primary seatbelt bill. And as a former state trooper who was involved in an accident which significantly injured him, he had a passion for this. But his constituents had contacted him and said, we don't like this bill. And he stood up on the House floor, to his credit, and said, I am changing my vote from committee, because we were on Transportation Committee together. I was for the bill, but I wasn't elected by me. I was elected by my constituents. My constituents don't want this bill, but I don't want to let you know that I'm voting against this bill, having voted for it in committee. But he made it known publicly that he was changing his vote because of his constituents. That has always stuck with me.
And that makes so much sense. I mean, literally, I've had that vote a couple of times this session where I'm supposed to be in voting with the party or something on this thing, but my constituents want this thing to happen. There's a big thing about facial recognition technology, and my constituents want it. I mean, people think, well, they say that it's discriminatory against African Americans and black and brown people, and we shouldn't do it. But my constituents are like, look, whatever it takes, we need to deter.
Explain the bill and explain the issue.
Well, the issue is around facial recognition technology and the use of it. Right now, the state police use it. If you have a driver's license in Virginia, it's a smart ID. They use your facial recognition and biometrics. You go to the airport, they don't give you you don't need your boarding pass anymore. You just take your driver's license and they slide it through, and all of your information is tied to that driver's license. So when you slide that driver's license through at TSA, that's it. You use your boarding pass to get on the plane, but so they're already using facial recognition technology and biometrics. You go to the airport.
It's widely used.
It's widely used.
I mean, it's on your phone.
It's on your phone with your face, whatever. Right. Yeah,
so
it's widely used. They're capturing the imagery. They're storing those images. It's already used. The problem is we don't have any guardrails. None. Zero. We banned it a couple of years ago. The original bill didn't want to ban it. It just wanted to let localities know that it was being used, because that was a story that came out that it was being used, but the locality didn't even know it. And some law enforcement had been able to use it. And so there was a bill that came out, Delegate Don introduced the bill just to say, hey, public notice before you use it. Got over to the Senate, and I think a senator put added another section to it that said, no, it's banned.
Oh.
Yeah. So so facial recognition technology was literally banned, but the state police were still using it, which is it legal or is it not legal? So now we just kind of, we were in this weird space. And so now we needed to put some guardrails in place.
Sure.
We put a study to make sure that it's being tracked, to make sure it's not being abused. We put a misdemeanor offense in there for it to be, if it's used or misused or abused by someone who's working in the industry or within the state police or within a police department, a local police department, or a campus police department. They use it to try to, see if their wife is cheating or girlfriend, you know what I mean? They use it for some other undetermined purpose. We put in that it can't be used at all for a search warrant. It can't be used.
So you think the bill's in a good place?
I think the bill's in a good place, and I think it has a sunset clause, which means we'd have to vote for it again in a few years. If we don't like it, it'll never come back. It's dead.
Well, it's going to be tough to unwind facial recognition technology once you legalize.
It's already being used.
Right.
So the issue is, do we want the private sector only to continue to use it without any guardrails, or do we want to try to put some guardrails in and kind of manage it? And if the federal government decides they want to ban it, or they want to add some other restrictions, they can.
Okay.
And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the feds haven't spoken on the issue yet. They're still doing it. There are a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle that feel one way or the other about privacy being invaded. This is our fingerprint that they can get at any time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. But, I had constituents like, look, we got, our kids not safe out here. We need some stuff where there are people walking around here indiscriminately. They're posting their photos with guns on Instagram, Facebook. Police are not doing anything. We need to be able to help solve these crimes.
We're getting some of the actual applications of this thing.
So that's
from a safety standpoint, your constituents want it.
From just public safety. And I know, and that's the whole thing, this fear that drives us into some bad decisions around giving up privacy. And so that was the balance. But the people that were the most vocal, which is how it is, the vocal.
And your district is where?
It's in Portsmouth.
It's
in the majority African American community.
Want this.
The people that I was hearing from, they wanted it.
Okay.
And if they had not, I would have, because I asked those decision makers. I talked to my chief of police. I talked to members of my school board. I talked to members of my city council.
Okay.
And
so you listen to your constituents.
I listen to my constituents in my community, and if they're wrong or we're wrong, then hopefully we'll be able to fix it. And if it sunsets, or you know how this game goes. When it gets ready to sunset, there'll be somebody introducing a bill to remove that clause or extend it or whatever. So we'll see.
That's why we have so many bills.
But we'll have a lot of studies in between that time.
Okay, I know we're short on time. It's a busy time of year. It's conference week. We got budget negotiations to go on. Let's chop it up a little bit on who Don Scott is and what do you like, so people get to know you a little bit better. We talked about baseball. Who are your favorite baseball teams?
Houston Astros.
Astros.
I know they're gonna be mad at me. I know this whole cheat thing. From back in the they had the garbage can. I grew up in Houston in the Jasper,
look, they're
Texas.
winning now. I think this year was legitimate. I went to the World Series. Went to Game 1.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. 5 rows behind first base.
Really?
It was fantastic. We'll talk offline.
Wow.
Oilers fan to Tennessee Titans?
No.
No?
Dallas Cowboys fan. Grew up there, but the Oilers were very sorry when I was a kid, and all we saw on TV were the Cowboys.
Of course.
So I was a diehard Cowboys fan, season ticket holder to this day.
Really?
20 years season ticket holder. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I don't have. Only person that loves me is Jerry Jones. I give him money every July. He gets a big check.
What about college football? Do you follow me?
I'm an Aggie.
Okay.
I'm a Texas A&M, so I'm Gig 'em, baby. I'm a Texas Aggie.
Right,
I went to A&M undergrad. I went to LSU Law School, so 2 SEC schools. So if the Aggies are out, I root for LSU.
Okay, well that's legit.
But I'm an Aggie, and they play each other, so I have to root for the Aggies always.
Okay. All right, well that's great stuff there. Yeah. Now, favorite books?
Wow. So
give me a couple.
I got as funny you say this. I was just reading this book called The Half Was Never Told. It's a story around slavery and capitalism. It has some, I've read the book, and then I went back and read some critiques where they say some of the facts, because it talks about how cotton and slavery, and but the driver of slavery was not so much what we want to believe about it as race, which it was. That was the undergirding, but it was also financial. It was money. It was financial exploitation, economics, and labor. That's it. And so, I mean, that's the biggest part of it, and it talks about how all of the institutions, banking, industry, all benefited from slavery to this day. And those advantages, those starts, those fixed costs that you could manage. Like, imagine you getting free labor forever, for 150 years. That's what it was. So I would
love to talk to you more about that, because I find it a fascinating subject, especially the mechanization of our industry,
cotton gin,
and how that reduced the need, dependence on that labor. I'd love to really chop it up with you some other time.
So it's a good book.
I know we're pressed on time. Favorite TV shows?
Oh man, you're gonna ask me. I can't think of off the top of my head. I was just anything fresh. What's my favorite show? Well, as a kid, I loved Sanford and Son.
Sanford Cliff Hayes.
Sanford and Son. And right now, I've been watching Ozark on Netflix.
Oh, you like that one?
Oh, man, I like Netflix. I like Better Call Saul on Netflix, stuff like that. So,
favorite movies? We'll wrap it up with
my favorite movie of all time, The Godfather, the original. The Godfather.
Okay.
It's just so many.
Best line from Godfather 1. What's your favorite?
Best line from Godfather 1, we'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
There you go. That was quick. On top of the tongue, no less. The legislator said, make him an offer he can't refuse, says Delegate Don Scott. Thanks for joining us on a shortened edition of the VIP podcast. Our brand new VIP, Delegate Don Scott of Portsmouth, who has to go about his duties here at the General Assembly. I'm Chris Saxman on the VIP podcast, available to you on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Please subscribe, like, and share, and we'll see you next time.